Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Belinda Elise Collin. I am Vice President of the Food Canada Division of Dempsey Corporation. We are a distributor of specialty food ingredients to food companies across Canada, and I am also a past president of CIFST National. On behalf of CIFST, welcome to our 2021 Table Talks webinar series, The Learning Trough, where we bring you regular webinars that explore the future of food. If you haven't already, please visit CIFST's website for a list of upcoming webinars, which will continue every second week between September and November. And I believe next week in 2 weeks might be the last one. Thanks. If you are a member of CIFST, which I highly recommend you check out, registration for the entire webinar series is free. And we'd like to thank Dempsey Food for their generous sponsorship of our webinar series this year. So today's topic is consumer trends, nutrition, health, and food innovation. And our speaker is Rob Cowell. So I'll tell you a little bit about Rob. He is president of Chris Gore and Associates, which is a food ingredients agency. Before starting Chris Gore and Associates in 2006, Rob worked for many well-known food and food ingredient companies, including Hostess, which is now Frito-Lay, Firmenich, Kerry Ingredients, the NutraSweet Company, Quadra Chemicals, and Wild Flavors. He is also the writer, speaker, and co-author of this great book, Deep Health, Using Artificial Intelligence to Live Longer and Healthier. And my copy is autographed. That's very cool. Rob has an extensive network supported by his long-term association with CIFST. He served as chair of the CIFST Ontario section from 2009 to 2013, and he currently sits as past president of CIFST National. Welcome, Rob. So we will
Thanks,
be giving,
Belinda.
Yes.
Yeah,
we will be giving away a copy of your book to one lucky attendee at the end of the webinar, and it will be shipped directly from Amazon.
That's great, super. And if, well, I really appreciate that. That's great. And now, can I just chewing a check? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Or not? You can. Okay, good. Okay, good. Good. Well, thank you, Belinda, for the great introduction, and thank you all who are online here listening in today for to watch this presentation. And thank you for your support of CIFST. We really do appreciate it. So. I'm going to talk a little bit about consumer behavior today, market drivers, motivations, insights, and as the title of the presentation, around health, nutrition, and food innovation. And certainly over the last 2 years, the consumer behavior has been influenced greatly by the pandemic and COVID-19 and our lockdowns and so on. So it's a real challenging time, I think, for the industry. I did this in 2019, a lot has changed since then. Some of the same things, some of the topics are the same, but a lot has changed because of COVID. So I'll start with some macro trends, and there's really 4 macro trends that I'm seeing. And again, this is my interpretation of data, and it's my opinion on a lot of these things. So, but shifting demographics is a big issue. The aging population, the boomers, millennials, Gen Zs, ethnic diversity, our ethnic cuisines are influencing how we choose our food, smaller households in Canada, and there's a widening have and have not, the gap, the socioeconomic gap, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Convenience is still a thing, but it's changed. In 2019, we talked a lot about transumerism, where people were going back and forth, commuting to work and so on. Of course, being locked in our homes and locked down, we stayed at home, and that's made a big difference in how we order our food and how we shop, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We still are concerned about environmental concerns, and we see a lot of this in the food industry around food waste, sustainability, urban and vertical farming, and reducing plastics. And I'll touch on a few of those things too, but I'll spend most of the presentation around the whole health wellness piece, especially around food and nutrition as relates to chronic disease, health and wellness, gut health, smart technology, and talking about a little bit about simple and clean label products. So, but before we go on, consumer trends will change significantly, and it's really unknown because of the sort of burgeoning inflation that we're starting to see, and I think it's going to get much worse. And in fact, if you look at the recent Stats Canada data, which I think is understated, they're looking at about 4.5 through the end of August into September, 4.5% consumer price index. Stripping out gasoline, it's about 4%, but it's not really reflective of what's going on in the food industry. And I think there's much higher price increases coming and more inflation. You can look at these numbers here, January to September. You can see cooking or salad oil is up, 25 to 30%. I think bacon is now up over 15% in price. Chicken, same. Rib roast, right across the board. So the inflation is going to really impact how consumers can buy and select their foods, and broadening that socio-economic gap between the haves and the have-nots. And we know why that is. There's the price of gasoline is up 32.8% year over year at the end of September, and that's just going to get worse. And of course, we know all about the shipping lines, Belinda. All of the containers that are locked on the coast, especially the West Coast. The drought in the Midwest is adding to the inflationary pressures, and also the trucking industry in the United States. They're short 80,000 drivers. So this is just going to continue, and it's going to get worse. And the backlog, I think it's going to be a couple of years before we start to see this sort itself out. I mentioned smart technology because I think it plays a huge impact in consumer choice and how consumers are buying their foods and selecting foods. Of course, it's helped us become more globally connected. I think that there's a lot of benefit to the technologies, and so we can reach out across the world at any time with FaceTime or any other with our smartphones. It's fantastic. But it's certainly changed how we work and communicate with each other, and it's enabled it. I mean, a few years ago, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do this. The technology didn't really support the way we are all working from home right now and communicating with each other. And I don't remember really the last time I've had sort of a telephone call from a customer. Most of the time it's email or FaceTime or LinkedIn or some of the other social media. I'll talk a little bit about that. But working remote is definitely here to stay, whether we work at home or from our coffee shops or from our cottages. And in fact, the recent labor force survey update from Stats Canada indicated 3.1 million Canadians worked from home during the pandemic time, and 90% of those, when they were surveyed, suggested they were at least as productive at being home, and 32% were more productive being home. So I don't know how management feels about that in certain companies, but certainly the people that are working from home love it, and they want to keep it. So there's going to be a lot of people wanting to stay at home. And it certainly influenced the way we've shopped during the first round of lockdowns. We didn't get we couldn't go out. Many of the malls were shut. So we turned to online shopping and bought all of our durable goods and all of our shopping online. And no more evident than that was how we got our food or bought our food. So Uber Eats, for example, has just exploded. Uber Eats generated $4.8 billion in revenue in 2020, 152% increase in 1 year. And it's now it's the largest food delivery service with 66 million users. So Uber Eats really benefited from the lockdown. This little company, Tiny Mile, I don't know if you've seen that. I know when I mentioned it, Heidi wasn't aware of it, but this is downtown Toronto. These little guys work on a GPS unit with AI-enabled software. And you can order through your favorite app, whether it's Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats or DoorDash. You can order your meal. There's 25 or 30 restaurants participating in this. These little guys have a 2-kilometer radius. They take your food for $1 a kilometer, so it's very inexpensive. Bring it right to your door if you live in a condo, for example, or an office. You can get your food that way. So we're going to see more of this kind of thing. The meal kit business exploded. So people started ordering meal kits for easy, quick assembly. And this market has now tripled over the last 5 years and expected to exceed $400 million last year. And I think it's done that. I haven't been able to find updated information, but so meal kit is become very popular. There's probably a dozen meal kit type companies, but HelloFresh and Good Food are the 2 top in Canada. And how we have our groceries delivered. If we can't go shopping, Grocery Gateway at Longo's, Voila at Sobeys, and Loblaws all have delivery services to bring your groceries right to you. When we do venture out, this is going to change too. So I mentioned this a couple of years ago, Amazon Go, where you walk into their stores, you scan your phone, you pick your product off the shelves, the algorithms know what you've taken, and you walk out, and it bills you, it sends your bill to your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet. And in fact, Amazon is rolling out their palm reading technology. They're licensing it out to a number of different supermarkets, but they're going to roll it out to their Whole Food stores starting in 2022. Two of them, at least in California, starting in 2022. So the technology is going to be a bigger role. And of course, this can be very disruptive, especially for people that might lose their jobs, cashiers, and so on. So something to watch for. If you do venture out and you want to try the traditional shopping, you can go to Sobeys. They've got their smart cart technology where you actually shop, scan, and pay right in the cart. You weigh your produce right in the cart, you pay at the cart, and then you leave the store. It's fantastic. It really does, it's quite amazing. To even do a deeper dive into what's in your foods, Smart Label was launched in the United States. There's hundreds of companies that now participate with Smart Label. And companies like Hershey, you can scan to learn more about what's in your products and not just on the label. So it's really taking off and doing well. And of course, even deeper than that, you can now scan your food. These apps have been around for a while, but they're much more AI enabled and in depth. So you can scan a label, you can tell how healthy your food is, you can track your calories and macro and micronutrients and so on. So, and backed by science. So consumer, it's really influencing consumer buying behavior. So companies that aren't on board with this are probably going to have to be very soon. And a little bit further down the road, probably 1 or 2 years out, is the AR function, augmented reality, where you'll take your phone, you'll point it down an aisle, you put in looking for what's on sale or what's low sodium, and it will show you in the aisle where those products are. So that's coming, and it's really going to influence again and help with consumer buying patterns. One mention on AI and vertical farming, because I think vertical farming, it's been in the news a lot, and I think you're going to see more of it because of its sustainability. It's good for the environment. There's no pesticides or herbicides required, and with the it's becoming more scalable. So I think you're going to see a whole lot more in the vertical farming in the next couple of years for sure. For the food industry, more food companies are adopting blockchain and food security, where you track it from field to fork all the way through, and it cannot be corrupted. So the food safety and food security is going to be a big thing in the next few years as well. So I'll leave the technology part with just a touch on social media. I think it's really important that if your companies don't have a social media program and focus, it really needs to. I mean, people need to start listening to the influencers and the bloggers and the nutritionists and the dietitians and all the news that we're getting and consumers are getting from the social media stream. In fact, a quote here from David Levy, University of Washington, suggests that social media has created extreme levels of propensity to try new products. To achieve success, brands must not only innovate fast, but frequently. Smaller, more agile local brands are therefore gaining momentum over the international players. And that's nowhere, and in fact, I found a piece that sort of backs that up in IFT just recently at the IFT.org website. Small and very small manufacturers drove as much dollar growth, $29 billion, as the larger players at the end of 2020. And the major players are jumping on that, and they're saying, they're going to eliminate their poor performing stocks, products, and accelerating their new product innovations for last year and this year and next year. But in my opinion, the number one driver of buying behavior for consumers is the growing inclination toward preventative healthcare. And COVID has really accelerated that sort of trend. And I talked about this 2 years ago, and that was a trend then, but I think now more so. And some data backs that up. So the recent survey data from Innova Market suggested 33% of consumers said their concerns about immune health increased last year. That makes sense. 54% of consumers have educated themselves on ingredients that could boost their immunity, which makes sense. And 64% of consumers said choosing foods naturally high in nutrients was the most important part of improving their immune health. And this is a big industry, there's no question. If you look at the healthy eating category, down here, it's a $702 billion category, nutrition and weight loss. So it's growing and it will continue to grow. It's massive. And there's good reason for it. Consumers are concerned about their health, and they should be. When you look at the American side, 83% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. That was a study done in 2018 and continues to be so. 63% of COVID-19 hospitalizations are linked back to at least one of 4 pre-existing conditions, largely preventable through our lifestyles and diets, obesity, hypertension, and so on. So it's a huge concern. And in Canada, it's a similar situation. We're healthier than our American counterparts, that's for sure. But Metabolic Syndrome Canada suggests that Canadians are struggling to lead healthy lifestyles as a result of growing prevalence of chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease, and accounts for 17% of all healthcare costs in Canada, and tragically 43% of all deaths. And you can see the age groups between 60 and 80, 40% of that age group suffers from metabolic syndrome in Canada. So it's a growing concern for sure. Of course, the pandemic didn't help. 42% of Canadians are reported to have gained weight. As our friend Sylvain Charbois said, COVID-15 is a reality. My guess is that he's saying, quote, as we leave this pandemic, people will actually be looking for healthier options, and that health factor will become much more critical. So, and I agree with that. I think that's going to happen for sure. 2/3 of Canadians are in that obese category. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but Canada now ranks 5th among countries where obesity is prevalent in adults. This is a slide from 2016, but still the numbers are still the same today. And diabetes, of course, in Canada is soaring. About 30% of Canadians are living with diabetes or pre-diabetes, and that number is going to continue to decline. And of course, as I mentioned, it's a real burden on our healthcare systems at $14 billion per year. So it's a growing problem, and the industry is trying to react to that. Compare the Canada stat to some of the healthiest countries in the world, and you can see Spain here is the healthiest country in the world. This was from 2019, but still relevant. I don't think Bloomberg has done an update yet on this, but you can see the top countries here, the top 15. And this is based on obesity rates, smoking, air quality, and access to clean water. So you can see Canada falls down into the 16th place, and I think the US is down around 35 or 36. It has a lot more to do with our obesity. But when you look at these countries, their diets are different too. They don't consume a lot of highly ultra-processed foods, and they are typically either consuming a Scandinavian, Mediterranean, or East Asian diet. Right? So that has a lot to do with it. So what's causing these problems in North America primarily? And some say it's lack of exercise. This is my favorite cartoon. I showed this 2 years ago, and I keep it up here because I think it's quite funny. But anyway, it's true. We're not getting enough activity, and that has to do with the way we work. Our 86% of today's workforce is sedentary employment. We sit a lot, and especially in the last 2 years, we haven't been commuting to work. We stay at home. So it's a wonder we haven't gained more than 15 or 20 pounds, but that's what's happened. Some say it's the number of calories we consume, and that's true. If you look back into 1960, you follow the blue line, North Americans were consuming about 2,700 calories, and that number is now up to 34, probably well over that to 38. The last number I saw was about 3,800 calories. So more calorie consumption for sure. And if you look at the Nordic countries who've been really consuming around that same level, 3,000 to 3,400 calories, they're not suffering the same issues, but because their diets are different, right? And the reason for that is, of course, all calories are not created equal. So more whole foods, fresh foods, of course, are better for you than maybe some less, more processed convenience foods. The rising obesity epidemic in the US, as well as chronic diseases, are correlated with a rise in ultra-processed food consumption. And that was a University of George Washington University study, just recent. So it's pointing to our food, right? It's pointing to our food, and 60% of the calories Canadians consume come from ultra-processed foods as well. And you know, people are writing about this, and the food industry has kind of been under attack for these things for a long time. And the newest publication, Metabolical, by Dr. Robert Lustig, talks about the truth about processed foods and how it poisons our people and our planet. And you know, the food industry needs to respond to these kind of things. But there's a plethora of books and shows and all about how bad our food is, right? So it's something the industry really needs to be aware of and sort of debate for sure. A lot of this kind of thing then is leading to consumer confusion. So this former Pepsi CEO, Indira Nooyi, talked about this. This is several years old, but we've never seen the consumer as confused as they are today. And that's kind of true today still. I think that quote holds true. And the reason is that we're, you know, in the industry and through the media and so on, we give mixed messages, right? So fast food contains industrial chemicals from packaging. You know, exercise, they tell us we should exercise more, but then they say, well, that might not be helping as much as you think. You know, there's growing evidence that eating fat won't make you fat, but sugar will. You know, are GMO food safe? Eggs are bad again. You know, first they're okay and then they're not. You know, lots of mixed messages. Is a gluten-free diet harmful and so on? So there's a lot of confusion with the consumers. And the labeling is certainly under scrutiny lately. And this was a lawsuit that's popped up with, excuse the pun, Pop-Tarts. Mislabeling by Big Food is a real problem, right? This is from Fast Company magazine just a couple of days ago. So, you know, and the plaintiff is saying, well, there's no strawberry in the frosted strawberry tarts. That's misleading. So these kind of things are happening. And then the governments, of course, are responding to that. So a recent submission to Congress in the United States about the new Food Labeling Modernization Act will prevent deceptive labeling and that makes junk foods appear healthy. So they're working on all of this right now to change the front of packaging, nutrition labeling. The Safe Food for Canada regulations will have to follow along because we want to harmonize with our trading partners like Europe and the United States. So we're going to see more of this kind of thing happening with government intervention into labeling and so on for consumers. The launch of the Canada's Food Guide in 2019, the rework on that met with some scrutiny and some dissatisfaction when it came out in 2019, not including enough dairy and meat products in there, but it's certainly well received. They've had over 2.9 million visits to their website and 800,000 recipes have been accessed. So people are looking at it, the dietitians are following it, and you know, Canada's Food Guide is, I think, very much in line with a Mediterranean style diet, actually, when you look at that. So let's talk about a little bit new product innovation, especially around some of these things, all the multiple claims, non-GMO, grain-free, flour, you know, plant-based, low-carb, organic, and keto, and so on. And I'll touch on a few of these things. So I'll start with, I got good response when I did this in 2019 on my what's hot, what's not list. So let's sort of look at some of the ingredients and categories that are hot in the Canadian market, things like high fiber, pre and probiotics, no added sugars, alternative sweeteners like allulose and monk fruit, grain-free, gluten-free, healthy oils, adaptogens, nuts, seeds, and I'll touch on a bunch of these things as we go through it. And, you know, versus what's not, like GMO foods, artificial sweeteners, sodium benzoates, antibiotics, herbicides, especially glyphosate's been in the news a lot lately, palm oil, BHT and BHA, phthalates, and complex labels versus a simple label. So, you know, the industry is responding to these things. We're seeing a lot of activity, of course, in our R&D efforts and product development efforts to deal with some of this stuff. So let's take a look at a few of these things. Organic is, I was asked a couple of years ago if I thought organic was just a fad, and certainly no, it's certainly continuing to grow. And these numbers, although it mentions 2017, the numbers are the same today, that about 2/3 of Canadians are buying organic groceries weekly. Maybe not their full basket, but certainly most or 2/3 are buying quite a bit of organic food to the tune of $7 billion last year. And that's only 3% of our domestic agricultural sales. But the demand for these products are growing fast, about 8% annually, and the Canadian farmers can't keep up, and in fact, they're looking to expand their acreage to grow more organic. So organic's here to stay, and it's going to continue to grow. The big category for me is plant-based. I mean, this is all we've been hearing about lately, and for a good reason. It's significant market. Milk, meat, frozen meals, baked goods, right across the board, butter, protein powders, and so on, all the way through. It's a $7 billion category now, and has grown 43% over the last 2 years, 9 times faster than total food sales. So plant-based is not a fad. This thing is going to continue, I think, for a number of years and continue to grow. And you can look at the double-digit growth; it's crazy. Most of this is built around the whole alternative protein, you know, around plant proteins, all the different various new proteins we're starting to see, and I'll show some products that incorporate some of these protein powders. Whole companies have sprung up around this, and PlantX, which is based in California, or in Vancouver, I believe, in the West, touts themselves as the digital face of the plant-based community. PlantX represents the one-stop shop for everything plant-based, and you can order groceries, food, plants, gifts, anything plant-based from one platform. And they have also opened up a retail store in BC, I think near, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's near Vancouver. So again, popping up. The two big, of course, we talked about this a couple of years ago. These guys really started it with the alternative meat product made from plants. And we've had veggie burgers for years on the market, but none of them emulated beef. And now that they're able to do that, these things have really taken off. Some critics say they're not that healthy, but if you want to avoid eating animal meat, certainly these are great options and continue to grow. There's a couple of new entries. Bolthouse Foods has come up with their carrot dogs. That's just marinated whole peeled carrots and spiced, and when you put them on a barbecue, apparently they taste pretty darn good. So gluten-free and again plant-based. But it's really going mainstream. I received this flyer in the mail not too long ago from Pizza, touting their plant-based menu. So it's not just sort of a sideline anymore when the big guys are starting to tout their plant-based products. The dairy alternatives was the biggest category, in my opinion, on where the plant-based products have really hit. And these dairy alternatives are becoming more popular. Oat milk is a good example, you know, hit 4.4 million in 2017 and soared to 29 million in 2019, surpassing almond milk. And Sylvain Charlebois says, you know, the same market reaction is being reported in Canada, and that's true. And that in this market's expected to reach $16 billion globally by 2029. So dairy alternatives are going to continue to rock out there, that's for sure. You look at some of them out. Oatly started it, right? We've got Elmhurst with their whole line of nut milks. We're really fans of the cashew milk, and the Nestle with their Coffee Mate line of oat milk creamers and almond milk creamers, and Chobani and so on. We can go on. Not Milk is a newer entry, I believe, in the Canadian grocer. This was in Alberta, and you know, they're touting that they're using pea protein, sunflower oil, and producing it, you know, produces 74% less energy than regular milk. You know, the sustainability and the environmentally friendly aspect of this type of product is out there for sure. Our friends at Gailey came out with a great new non-dairy coconut-based whipped topping. If you've never tried this product, it's really quite good, actually gluten-free and so on. There's another example. And the Chobani back in this in a big way with their plant-based, you know, organic oats, yogurt type product with 6 grams of protein. So lots of entries into this. On the heels of this really is the keto too. Keto has been very big. I know a lot of people have had great success in a keto style diet, but the products are becoming more mainstream out there too. So continuing to grow, you're going to look at market growth of about 5% from where it is today to about 1.18 billion in 2024. So it's a growing market, and it's going to continue to see more and more keto type products in the market. Here's a couple of them. Protein keto beverage from Bolthouse Farms, 1 gram of sugar, plant-based, you know, 2 grams of net carbs and 12 grams of protein, and they're using coconut milk and pea protein, erythritol, and stevia for their sweetener. And of course, they've got all kinds of claims down the right side there on the no sugar added, no artificial sweeteners, and so on. So really interesting new entry from Bolthouse. In our baked goods, you can see this, I believe, a Florida company, Base Culture, flagging out the keto, grain-free, gluten-free, preservative-free, dairy-free, and you know what? These products taste pretty darn good. So they've come a long way from where they were a few years ago. Kind Bar, the big, some of the big players are touting it too this year. They have 12 grams of protein from real food. Hungry Buddha is another good example of a keto entry using MCT oil, and they're playing up their environmental commitments to donating 1% of their annual sales to Oceana and David Suzuki Foundation. And there's a bunch more. I could go on. Love Good Fats, Keto from Inno Foods, Organica, and so on. So we're going to see more and more and more. It goes to that the small, medium enterprises that are launching a lot of these new innovative products. Magic Spoon is another who's not, doesn't really talk about the keto, but they would meet the keto diet. It's only 4 grams of net carbs, 13 grams of protein, and they're using allulose monk fruit extract as their sweetener and some inulin as well for some sweetness and some dietary fiber. So good products. And the big guys, one of my suppliers, Post Consumer Brands, has launched a new Premier Protein cereal. I don't know if you've seen it. It's in Costco. You can find it. It's 20 grams of protein per serving, and they use milk protein concentrate and whey protein isolate. So good product, really tasty, actually. A couple more organic Greek yogurts from Olympic, really positioning it as from grass-fed cows, so it's more wholesome and organic and high in protein as well. Chobani's doing a great job with their products. They have this advanced nutrition line where they talk about 9 essential amino acids, 25 grams of protein, billions of probiotics, and so on. And they're using monk fruit, stevia extracts, and chicory root fiber for sweetness and for dietary fiber. So lots there. Of particular interest to me is this whole edible insect. I was asked not too long ago, is it something that's going to continue to grow? In fact, Nova just had a program. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, it just was released, I think, early October, and talking about edible insects. And I think, in fact, Ontario section, CIFST Ontario section had a speaker about edible insects as well. So it's becoming more popular. In fact, the global insect market is expected to reach $8 billion by 2030. Supported by a compounded annual growth of about 24% during the forecast period 2019 to 2030. And they're using mealworms, and it's for fertilizer, animal feed, and for human foodstuffs. So more and more of this is going to happen. This company's out of France, I believe, and they've got a ProDefarm division out of the Netherlands, so that are doing this thing. So it's very interesting times for insect, and I think, and rightly so. I mean, you look at the protein, insects are a complete protein. They contain all 9 amino acids, and they can be up to 69% protein levels depending on how they're processed. So, and pound for pound, when you look at greenhouse gas emissions, 1 gram of greenhouse gas emissions for 1 kilo of protein for insects versus 2,850 grams for a cow production or pig. So it's amazing the difference, and I think you're going to see more of it. If we can overcome our culinary bias, I think that you're going to see more and more people eating things like mealworms. So it's coming. In fact, here's some products out of the UK. You want to settle down and watch a football game, you grab your grubs, and you can eat buffalo worms, grasshoppers, crickets, and mealworms. I'm sure a few of you are being a little squeamish right now, but it is there, and it's happening certainly in other parts of the world. This is a bread from Finland, it has 70 crickets per loaf. I think I showed this a couple years ago. It's still there. Fit Cricket, a product in the United States, has protein bars that are still doing well. So I'll leave that, and I'll go into a quick on gut health, because consumers are becoming more aware of how important the gut is for our immune systems. And so they're looking for products like that support gut health. Of course, pro and prebiotics play a big role in that, and it's even more popular now than it has been. It's a growing market. You're going to see it grow about 10% a year in the prebiotic and probiotic space. So globally, it's just continuing to explode. And we're seeing some products in North America that are taking advantage of this, like the Truth Bar is a prebiotic probiotic bar. It has 1 billion coliform-forming units probiotics per bar. And of course, Wello has got a great probiotic bar line as well. Microbar this is very interesting from a prebiotic position because it uses all 4 different oligosaccharides that are available, and it's quite a good product actually. And then you're seeing some line, again, Coffee Mate, Nestle with their prebiotic fiber creamer, and Baby Bell's just launched a new probiotic plus, a dairy snack with their cheese. So it's really taking well. Very closely associated with that is dietary fiber. Our fiber, of course, we know we're not getting enough dietary fiber even after all these years. Canadian women still require 25 grams, men 38 grams, and we're only getting about half that much. So there's still a big demand for dietary fiber and need for it. Astro has just launched a new protein and fiber stirred yogurt to take it, to sort of as an entry into this space. 14 grams of protein and 4 grams of fiber, made from dairy and natural oat flour. So it's quite a nice product actually. Some of the more traditional product like Breadline, Country Harvest still has their grain and fiber line, and they're using pea hull fiber and chicory root inulin as their fiber content, or to add to their fiber content. And the big players like Procter & Gamble with their Metamucil have launched a new fiber gummy. It's been out there for a while. It's doing really well. It promotes digestive health. And there's a whole line of different supplement companies that are taking advantage of this whole prebiotic or demand that's out there. Some of the products I talk about that have an immune-specific focus, because that is of interest to consumers. You see a whole bunch of products like this matcha beverages, 12 grams of protein, but they're including lots of things like turmeric and spirulina and maca, MCT oils, and so on all the way down. So this product is doing quite well in the market. Again, Procter & Gamble entry with Vicks, Pure Z sleep and immune support, using melatonin, elderberry, and zinc. And these are all natural products, as opposed to using sort of a NyQuil type product. You can use a natural Z-Quil, they call them. Bolthouse Farms has a whole line of products with vitamin C boost, super immunity boost, all talking about immune health. And they have their bolts, not only for immunity, but some of the other things like digestion and energy. So you can see a lot more of these entries into the marketplace. Vitamin D has been all through the news. It's important to get our vitamin D, especially in the Northern Hemisphere and especially during the winters. And Shine Water has included 100% daily vitamin D in their water beverages, plus electrolytes and so on. So again, taking advantage of the demand from consumers. And these products are in the United States are being distributed by Anheuser-Busch. So it's kind of an interesting association there. Adaptogens, I think in our CIFST alt, there was a couple of speakers talked about adaptogens, especially around reishi mushroom. And these are becoming more and more popular. They used to be just in the supplement space, but now you see like ashwagandha and a few others. It's really important. And we know the benefits of adaptogens for supporting immune function amongst all the other things here on the screen, anti-inflammatory agent and so on. And so we're seeing more products. In fact, Givaudan has put out a prototype ashwagandha infusion, tapping into the COVID-19 mega trend. So the flavor companies and some of the other companies are looking at this as a new market entry and growing market for sure. Back to Vicks, they have their melatonin plus ashwagandha, and so they're using a lot of the adaptogens in this and helping people sleep, and again, all natural. So it's doing quite well. And a whole line of Rebel beverages here that use turmeric, ashwagandha, and reishi mushrooms and so on, and high protein products. But they're all doing quite well and all around immune health. Kombucha is still popular, and this one is a new entry with 25 milligrams of CBD oil or CBD in it. So it's popular, and again, CBD is considered an adaptogen. And I'll finish up here with some sugar, because sugar has been sort of the most active category, reducing or replacing sugars. And we know why. The American Health Association talks about what's good for you and why you should be eating so much sugar. Heart and Stroke Canada is recommending that we should only get about 10% of our added sugars per day from over a 2,000 calorie diet. It's about 12 teaspoons. But in fact, Canadians are are consuming about 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. So quite a lot. You can not compared to the United States, the 32 teaspoons of sugar a day, added sugars a day, versus Denmark with sort of a low of 18. So we have some room to sort of improve that, that's for sure. And I think the sugar reformulation replacement category will remain for a number of years. Of course, there's a whole bunch of different sugars. Some maybe not behave differently than sugar, but they're being used in combination maybe with allulose or honey or stevia and so on. Lots of sugar alternatives out there. Smart Sweets is probably the best example of someone who's taken advantage of this and using isomalto, oligosaccharide, chicory root, and stevia. They've just taken the confectionery industry by storm. They're doing really well with these products. And they only have 3 grams of sugar per bag and 18 grams of fiber. So it's really quite a nice, and if you haven't tried them, I suggest give them a try. They're quite good. And there's a whole category, a whole pile, I'm running out of time, but a whole pile of products out here that are touting low sugar, no sugar, added sugar. Coke has recently relaunched their diet. Coke is a 0 sugar Coke. So it's certainly mainstream for sure. So just to summarize here, consumers are increasingly understanding the connection of food choice and consumption to their health and wellness, and they're looking for more healthy products for sure. Consumers are more aware of the ingredients in their food, which is why there's a focused effort on labeling. Consumers are looking for healthier options. Functional foods and ingredients will continue to evolve, and processed foods will become healthier over the next few years for sure. So I'll leave you with that, and hopefully, Belinda, we have maybe have a few questions. I have some time for questions.
Yes, we do have some questions, and we have about 9 minutes left, so we should have time to get to them.
Okay, good. I got through there. Good.
But what an amazing presentation! I'm sure all through the whole presentation, I was just saying, wow, like wow.
Yeah.
All of this information is just amazing. I'm sure everyone who is here is pretty glad that they took the time to attend, and probably some of them might be asking you to do this presentation again for their own internal groups.
Yeah.
That was so good. That was so good. So, okay.
I honestly prefer doing these things in public, face to face, but of course that is the way, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no, the information you've just presented is so valuable for, I think, so many people in the industry.
Thanks.
So let's get to the first question. So this question says, how are these trends going to affect the Canadian issue related to osteoporosis? If you know anything about that.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, because it's a problem, and certainly we're seeing more products where people are looking at bone health, bone density. I think you're seeing there's some claims around inulin and fructooligosaccharides that helps with that. Osteoporosis and sarcopenia, so higher protein. I think it needs to be addressed. I don't know if the food industry is doing it. I know the supplement industry sure is. But yeah, I would think that if more, we could incorporate more ingredients and ways of helping people absorb more calcium. I know it's an issue with like vitamin D, for example. You need to make sure you got vitamin K levels at a pretty high level in order to facilitate the absorption of calcium, right? So those things are starting to become more mainstream, but we don't see much of it in the industry yet. No.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've seen that at all. So that probably will be something that will be coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, good question.
Yeah. Another question is a client, one of the attendees' clients has requested formulations with sprouted grains, and just that seems to be a trend. Are there any functional benefits, or do you think this is just marketing hype?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, sprouted grains are better for you than a commercial grain. I'm sure it depends on how it's grown. It depends if it's organic. It depends on a lot of different things. But no, I think there's merit to it. I'm just not familiar with how to use sprouted grains in that. I have it in my salad all the time, but I'm not sure how to get it into a processed food, kind of thing. I haven't seen formulations like that yet. Yeah. That's
right. Yeah, I think it is something that is up and coming. I think people know it's a good thing, but they're not really sure why. So.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it, to the point of is it marketing hype? A lot of products are they need to be hyped. You know, you need to make claims. You need to show, and a lot of the regulations keep us from making claims. But that's why people do it on their websites, for example, or through social media. That's where the social media comes in. You know, people will say something, and other consumers will follow, whether it's right or wrong. You know, that's how they're getting their information.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Okay, next question. Do you feel there is enough clinical data to support the health claims of adaptogens, or is that mostly marketing?
Oh, no, I think there's a lot of science that supports adaptogen and health. I think, but again, I think we're sort of limited with regulations, right? You sort of can't make those claims.
Right.
You know, we know, right? You just can't put it on the labels yet. Health Canada doesn't allow it. The FDA won't allow it right now. I think there's big pressure to do that. You know, and you look at some of the changes coming with the Food Labeling Modernization Act. I think we'll start to look at how to get approval for some of these things and start using some of the science that is out there to show that. But it's a good question. Good question.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, yeah, we're counting on consumers to recognize those ingredients and know what they are through maybe what they've read through social media, but we can't make any on the package.
Can't make the claims. Right.
Yeah,
and there's enough evidence in the naturopath, the nutritional practitioners that are out there in the world, you know, and scientists and doctors and so on that talk about some of the benefits and are doing some of the research on some of the benefits. But again, you can't sort of make the claims, but it gets out to the consumers through social media and other venues, and so people start buying things based on this.
Yeah, and I think people need to really tune into how they feel when they eat certain things, because I know we talked about this in the past. I think everyone has there's individualized nutritional needs, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, so if you're in tune to what makes you feel good or what makes you feel bad, you can figure these things out for yourself. So
you can.
The clinical data may be there, but that might not be applicable to you.
Right. I agree 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, another question. What is the health trend in ice cream industries like prebiotic or probiotic ice cream? There's so many.
Yeah, there's so many, and I guess, you know, when you see sort of Astro in the yogurt space come out with a protein and fiber, you know, I think ice cream, you know, there's two sides. There's the indulgent side. People just want, you know, great old Haagen-Dazs, you know, or rich cream, and you know, right? We all want that, right? But there are times when you want maybe a healthier choice. So I think there's room for growth in that space. I'd certainly like to see it, because I'm interested in that space as well. Yeah, we've had sort of hits and misses in the dairy sector with products. You know, you see, I know Dannon has launched a number of products with high fiber, and then they discontinue it. You know, it just doesn't get traction. So I don't know what the sweet spot is and how to get consumers how you have to market something like that. But anything that has a sort of a benefit, and you know, the ice cream industry is, you know, it was really segmented to sort of lactose free and then, you know, sugar free and that kind of thing. I think there's room for more formulations, including dietary fiber and probiotics, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay. How will consumer trends towards more health conscious choices impact the alcohol industry?
Yeah. Well, again, this is the indulgent part, right? So there are, you know, you're seeing a real burgeoning of organic products, right? Like I can find, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, you'd find one bottle of organic wine at the LCBO. Now I can find dozens of them, right? And so people are looking for, I don't think people are going to give up drinking their alcohol, but I think they would look at healthier choices if they're there, right? So maybe, you know, there's been alcohol or alcohol type products that are, you know, wine, you know, for example, alcohol-free wine. I think it's called Viv, a Canadian company, where they have CBD oil, right? And so you're not really getting the alcohol, but you're still getting the buzz from the CBD. And you're not, you know, having that. So I think products like that will continue to grow. You'll see more organic products, see lots of different, what do you call it? spritzers and those types of products that are out there with different flavors and flavor systems and so on. So, it'll continue to grow. Yeah. But I don't think people are going to give up drinking alcohol. I think those that like it, like me, I like my bottle of wine, right?
They might reduce, maybe, reduce and maybe go with a low or no alcohol beverage. Yeah, right. A couple.
Yeah.
Yep. My personal question is, do you know where companies can get allulose or monk fruit if they're looking for that as an ingredient?
No, I know it's in short supply. Right? Yeah, it's very difficult to find. I don't know. I know a couple of the Canadian distributors might have them or a line on them, but I know allulose especially is quite in short supply. The product that is available is being sort of gobbled up by the big companies that want it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to be really tough. It's a similar situation we find ourselves in with inulin in the FOS market. It's really tight, and I think it'll continue that way for many of the alternative sweeteners. I don't know about stevia, but allulose for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
good. Yeah, me neither. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me this question. So we have come to the end.
Okay,
so
good.
We will select one of the questions to receive a copy of Rob's book. So the one that has been selected by our panel here, which is me, is the person who asked the question on adaptogens. So, so the management company, Sensian Association Management, who runs CIFST, will reach out to that person and let you know that you've won the prize and you will get your book.
Good. Congratulations. That's great. Hope you enjoy it.
Congratulations. I hope you enjoy the book. It's a good read. So Rob, thank you very much for this very informative presentation. I had high expectations and you exceeded them. So that's amazing. So thank you very much for putting this together for us today. It was a ton of information, and I'm sure everyone's very grateful that they took the time to attend. So just a reminder that we are hosting webinars, and there is another one at the end, near the end of November, and they are free if you are a CIFST member. So the next one is Wednesday, November 17th, and the topic is Expecting the Unexpected, Returning to a New Normal. And the speaker is Jody Ziegelstein-Yip, and she is Chief HR Innovator and founder with Enliven HR Consulting. Registration is now open on our website. So thank you for attending today's webinar, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.